See, money and weapons are very important aspects for a country in a war, but they become a headache for other countries if they are supporting the vulnerable side, which in this case is Ukraine. Ever since the Ukraine-Russia war started, the world has provided Ukraine with more than $308 billion in money, directly, indirectly, or committed. And this 308 billion figure is coming after compiling money from all the reputed published articles like these. But is that figure or amount accurate? I'll come to it shortly. Now this more than $308 billion is majorly coming from two entities, and the Ukrainian President Zelensky has his eyes tightly locked on them. The first is the US, which is obvious, and the second is all the European countries and their union. Now, if I classify this $308 billion number, then in diplomatic language, $175 billion worth of aid is provided by the US and $133 billion worth of aid is provided by European countries. Apart from this amount, a lot of direct or indirect aid is provided by many world leaders. So now, one by one, let's also classify the US, European nation, and the rest of the world help to keep. First, let's start with the US, as out of $308 billion, $175 billion worth of aid, or in simple money, is provided by the US to Ukraine. But the US way of helping Ukraine is very unique. It is more likely that they should be benefited more than the Ukraine in this war, but still the US is helping a lot. Now out of this $175 billion, $106 billion worth of aid is directly provided to the government of Ukraine, where $2.8 billion has been provided for humanitarian support, such as medical supplies and equipment, shelter and housing, refugee assistance, etc. $69.8 billion has been provided for weapons, equipment, and other military support. $33.3 billion has been provided for Ukraine budget support, which helps the Ukrainian government cover its day-to-day cost and maintain the functioning of the country during the ongoing conflict, such as reconstruction, economic stabilization, supporting businesses, managing inflation, and keeping the financial system operational. Now the rest of the remaining $69 billion is used for various US activities related to the war and to support other countries affected by the conflict. For example, helping neighboring countries like Poland or Moldova handle refugees or other challenges caused by the conflict. For example, the $69 billion is being used to continue the information war and fund various media outlets so that they could run Ukraine news 24 hours, to provide cybersecurity assistance, intelligence sharing, training, and much more. So does the money ends here? Not yet. An additional fund of $18.2 billion is allocated from regular annual budget of US government agencies, meaning this money was already planned to be sent elsewhere but was redirected to support Ukraine. Additional $1.1 billion is allocated from other Supplemental Appropriation Act, which are additional bills passed to address specific needs that arises outside of the regular budget. So now the US grand total becomes $175 billion plus $18.2 billion plus $1.1 billion, and that is more than $194.3 billion, which is just a massive number. But still, this isn't accurate. This is just a tip of the iceberg that is visible or official, and even officially, this more than $194 billion is close to $200 billion after the US allowed Ukraine to hit directly inside the Russian Federation. And also a huge assist from the US is now being provided to Ukraine. Fighter jets F-16s, where a single advanced unit could cost up to $60 to $70 million. I'll come to that shortly. So this is it. More than $200 billion has been provided by US to Ukraine in this way, and this number is way more gigantic for a country like Ukraine. For reference, Ukraine has never in history had a GDP of more than $200 billion. Even before the start of the war, its GDP was $199.77 billion, which was the highest since it was formed. Now, let us come to European countries. Out of $308 billion, $175 billion has been provided by the US to Ukraine, which is actually more than $200 billion, but leave it aside for a moment. Now the remaining $133 billion worth of aid or money has been provided by European countries. Now, if I classify this $133 billion, then the EU has sent over $47 billion in military support, including weapons, ammunition, tanks. It is also training tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers. Over $4.8 billion goes to humanitarian support. Nearly 8 million refugees from Ukraine have to come to the European nation, and the European nation has spent up to $18 billion to support them with housing, healthcare, and education. The European Union has sent over $2.2 billion to help Ukraine to export food. Out of all countries, Germany contributed the most, providing over 15 billion euros, or in simple 15.9 billion US dollars. So does it end here? Not yet. Britain is not part of the European Union, and it also significantly contributed amount to Ukraine, which is almost 14 billion euros or 14.89 billion US dollars. Now the European grand total becomes $133 billion plus $14.89 billion, which is $147.89 billion or simply $148 billion, which is again just an enormous number. The story still doesn't end here. In February 2024, the European leaders promised $54 billion to help Ukraine recover, build, and modernize, and also support its effort to join the European Union. So now the EU grand total becomes $148 billion plus $54 billion, which is equal to more than $202 billion, which is again a very gigantic number. This number is bigger than some European countries' GDP. So if we combine the estimated data from US and European countries aid to Ukraine, then the grand total is coming out to be more than $402 billion, which is still more than 2 times the highest GDP year of Ukraine. But there is still something left. The EU and G7 countries agreed to give Ukraine $50 billion in loans to support its budget, military, and reconstruction efforts. And these loans are funded by a frozen Russian asset, which is basically a theft, because things don't work like that in geopolitics. And under international law also, countries can seize asset of another country in case of war, but there is no mention of redistribution of that asset to another country. This move has already created a rift or lack of trust between Western and non-Western countries. It also questioned global financial system integrity, like the US dollar, SWIFT, and Western-dominated institutions like the IMF and World Bank, promoting non-Western countries to look for alternatives, which will take time, but process is already started, and in the upcoming 10 to 12 years, who knows what will happen. Non-Western countries may argue that this action represents the selective application of international law, where the powerful states act with impunity, with smaller or less powerful states are held to different standards, etc. So now, with all that $50 billion loan, Ukraine helping number is easily going to be more than $452 billion, which is again a massive amount. But the help to Ukraine doesn't stop here. There are also several non-Western nations that also help Ukraine. For example, Japan has donated over $7 billion to Ukraine. Most of this money has gone towards humanitarian aid like food and medical supplies. Japan has also sent some military equipment, but only non-lethal items like helmets or protective gears because of its pacifist constitution, which limits its ability to send weapons. Canada has confirmed over $12.4 billion in financial assistance to Ukraine. And also earlier I informed you about F-16, and each one of them cost up to $60 to $70 million, and around 65 F-16s have been pledged by NATO. Now, even if we consider a base price of $60 million, then for 65 of them it will cost almost $4 billion. So officially, with all the commitments, direct or indirect transfer, Ukraine helping amount is easily reaching at a staggering more than $470 billion. Now obviously this is a war, so there is a lot of unofficial amount of money and weaponry which has been provided to Ukraine, which no world leader want to disclose, because after all this is all their taxpayer money, and people's sentiments are also shifting regarding this war. And also there is no calculation regarding the new fresh weapons which were allowed by different countries to Ukraine to strike inside Russia, like the UK Storm Shadow, USA long range missile, and many more. The single unit of these kind of missile can cost up to more than $1 million, so it is really hard to actually calculate their cost because nobody knows how much missile they have. So with pure estimation, easily the official amount is close to more than $500 billion by all the countries' help, and 99% from USA and European countries' support. Now if Ukraine says that only half amount of actual money is actually received and the rest are commitments, then it makes very little sense, cause President Zelensky habit is known by everyone. If the committed amount do not reach to Ukraine, then he openly insults leader from his social media accounts, which he done numerous times in the past. Now almost $500 billion amount seems so big, which in true sense is big, but here's the catch in case of US. Actually, the majority of direct money provided to Ukraine is going straight to the US weapons company's bank account, or in simple, directly contributing to the US economy. Cause the question is straightforward, that from whom Ukraine will buy weapons to continue stand against Russia. China is not going to provide weapons, European countries' hands are tied, global south countries are not capable of provide quality weapons on larger scale, so the only country left is the USA, which can provide quality weapons at mass scale. Cause again the reason is simple, dollar is a global currency with more than 55% used in global economy, so literally they can print money not unlimited but enough dollar to fund their wars and own economy. So it may be frustrating for the US taxpayer that their country is spending so much money on Ukraine, which is not their neighboring country, which is on an entirely different continent, even whose name America never heard before this war began. But this is a very narrow perspective. Cause if we look things with broader view or with US government view, then there is a clear-cut opportunity to grow US economy and make a global dominance. That US is not a hypocrite country, it do what it said. So initially it might look like NASA this year budget is lower than the aid provided to Ukraine by USA, but the reality is clear. By any means that money is itself coming to the US economy, and for US only interest matters. Right now interest matters with Ukraine, so the US is their side. If in future US interest matters with Russia, then there is no doubt that US will favor Russia. So this is all it. The Ukraine is getting fund. On the heavier side, almost $500 billion of worth. But this is what which is being displayed or available. Unofficially, this amount may be reached to more than $1 trillion, as US federal government functioning is known worldwide, and so many European countries is also giving large number of paychecks to Ukraine, so that Ukraine keep Russia busy in their own land. Also, a lot of money is flowing in Ukraine since November, which information no country is interested to give, and Joe Biden, whose presidency only few days left, will again happily give a huge amount to Ukraine before Trump take over the Oval Office. Comment down below if you want next video on any topic, but for the time being, thank you.